On Sunday mornings, when our children gather with Luann, they hear a story from the Bible through a process called godly play. Godly play is based on the Montessori philosophy that children should be part of their own education. So Luann tells the story, the Bible story, in a very deliberate and thoughtful way, and uses wooden figures on a felt background. After the story, the children are encouraged to ask questions that begin with the words, "I wonder." This morning, we're going to use a modified version of Godly Play to look at this story from Matthew. But first, I want to give you a little background information. The story opens up with news that John the Baptizer has been arrested. And immediately, Jesus leaves his hometown of Nazareth and travels about 20 miles to Capernaum. Now, we don't know exactly why, but I think Jesus probably thought John's arrest was the sign that he was to begin his earthly ministry. And Capernaum was in Galilee, that was the land of the Gentiles. Capernaum is on the northwest shore of the Sea of Galilee. But remember that the Sea of Galilee is actually a freshwater lake. It's about 13 miles long and 7 miles wide. It's not very big. You can see across it. Capernaum was a little fishing town of about 1,500 people at that time, and it was on a main trade route between Damascus and Egypt. So there were lots of people passing through Capernaum all the time. It was a big fishing community. At one point, they estimated there were 230 fishing boats operating out of Capernaum. The fishing was done from boats with nets that were made out of flax. And because the nets were made from flax, the fishing was done at night so that the fish couldn't see the nets. In the morning, the fishermen would gather on the shore to mend their nets and hang them out to dry. Now we're going to get to the Godly Play story. So if it's easier for you to visualize with your eyes closed, I invite you to do that. See a small town nestled along the shore of a lake. Wooden fishing boats are pulled up along the shore. Muscular, hard-working, robust, dark-skinned, independent men are sitting by the boats, repairing their nets and talking about last night's catch. Then you see Jesus walking along the shore. He stops to speak to the fishermen. And you can hear him say to Peter and Andrew, "Come with me." To your absolute amazement, they get up, leave their nets, and begin walking with Jesus. A little further on, you see Jesus stop again. He speaks to James, John, and their father Zebedee, and again he says, "Come with me." And once again, the two sons of Zebedee get up and join Peter and Jesus and Andrew. Now you can open your eyes and wonder about the story. What makes you wonder in this story? I wonder about Jesus' appearance and charisma that would result in these four hardworking, bright men walking away from their jobs. I wonder about these men. What did they see in Jesus that motivated them to say yes? I wonder what I would have done. I wonder if I would have walked out of my classroom and followed this man called Jesus. I wonder how each one of us is being called to do exactly what Peter and Andrew and James and John did. I have always wondered about Jesus' appearance. One of the things I love about our big window is that it actually depicts Jesus as a Palestinian. We know he had dark hair and dark skin and probably deep brown eyes. And there is no doubt that he had some compelling charisma, something that drew people to him. Remember, in this story, he was just beginning his ministry, so he didn't have the notoriety that came later. Jesus must have exuded a sense of trustworthiness. These fishermen were wise to the ways of the world. After all, they had to deal with the Roman occupiers all the time. Every aspect of the fishing business was controlled by the Roman government. But they saw something in Jesus that gave them hope. The fishermen were faithful Jews. They knew the words of Isaiah. They must have had a sense that this man, Jesus, was special. I also wonder about call and how each one of us answers the call of Jesus to come with him. Now, many Christians believe that when we talk about call, we're talking about people who have a call to ordained ministry. But as followers of Jesus, each of us is called to ministry. There's a catechism in the back of the prayer book. You know, that part of the prayer book where you don't ever go? There's a catechism back there. And the catechism tells us that the ministers of the church, and they list them in this order: lay people, bishops, priests, and deacons. Lay people are first. And it goes on to tell us what the ministry of the laity is. And I'm quoting out of the catechism. The ministry of laypersons is to represent Christ and his church, to bear witness to him wherever they may be, and according to the gifts given them, to carry on Christ's work of reconciliation in the world, and to take their place in the life, worship, and governance of the church. That's a pretty clear charge. Just as Jesus told Peter and Andrew and James and John that he was going to make them fishers of people, he was calling them to be in relationship with all people, to preach and heal and care for anyone they encountered. And we are told that each one of us, through our commitment to Jesus, are to preach and to use the gifts we have been given to be in relationship with others. The Oxford Dictionary defines reconciliation as the restoration of friendly relations. I really like that. Reconciliation is the restoration of friendly relations. Jesus teaches human beings how to get along with each other, how to love one another, how to be in friendly relations with one another, even those with whom we have a difference of opinion. Jesus restored relationship with tax collectors who hung out with the hated Romans, and disabled folks, and women, and lepers, and Samaritans, and people who suffered from mental illness. Are you answering God's call to do the same thing? Week before last, we renewed our baptismal vows. Remember what you promised. One of the questions says, will you seek and serve Christ in all persons, loving your neighbor as yourself? And the answer is, all right, with God's help, we can't do it by ourselves. And that is a promise that we make, I will, not we communal, but I will seek and serve Christ in all persons. And the last question is, will you strive for justice and peace among all people and respect the dignity of every human being? And the answer is, serve Christ in all persons, strive for justice and peace. Matthew 4 tells us what happened, continuing in Matthew 4, tells us what happens after the fishermen began to travel with Jesus. And listen to parts of this, and this is translated through from Peterson in the Message. From there he went all over Galilee. He used synagogues for meeting places and taught people the truth of God. God's kingdom was his theme. He also healed people of their diseases. Word got around the entire Roman province of Syria. People brought anybody with an ailment, whether mental, emotional, or physical. Jesus healed them, one and all. More and more people came, the momentum gathering. So it doesn't say that Jesus only healed the Jews. It says Jesus healed them, one and all. So our call, and the call of the fishermen, was to proclaim the good news of God's love. And through that love, to restore friendly relations. And through that reconciliation, healing of all manner of disease. Look at the life of Jesus. Would so many people have turned their lives upside down for a really good teacher or an entertaining speaker? Would the religious authorities have been so dead set to shut him down if he was merely a good organizer or a charismatic figure? Jesus walked up and down Galilee, and everything about him radiated the love of God. He was the real deal. Peter and Andrew saw it. James and John saw it. Do you see it? Jesus walked up and down the countryside. He met with people in the meeting houses. He touched people and brought them to wholeness. Wherever he stepped was the light and love of God. People sitting in darkness looked up when Jesus came near and recognized the light and love. And as long as they stayed connected to his message, as long as they kept studying his word and falling in love with God over and over, and sharing the bread and wine, and healing all that was broken, as long as they followed the way of Jesus, fear didn't stand a chance. That is our call. Remember who and whose you are. When fear looms, answer with the reconciling love of God. Hate and division push terrified people into corners. But let us do as we hear so often our presiding bishop say, link arms and walk the loving, life-giving, liberating way that Jesus showed us. When you are asked, who sent you? Who gave you the power to act? Who do you follow? Your answer is the name above all names, Jesus. And the world will change.